Hello there, and welcome to the Revolution Supervisory Training Program. My name is Bob Anderson, and I've been working with Kristen Caldwell for quite some time, pulling together information about supervisory training, creating a Train the Trainer program for folks like yourself, and so that you can run this program at your own facility. Let's get started. Well, let's get started by first a little bit about myself. I've been a training and design consultant for a number of years, having had a chance to work overseas and with some large international manufacturing firms. And I was particularly taken to the shop floor. I've always been in a manufacturing facility and enjoy the hum and the bustle and the noise of manufacturing. And I find that there's just a lot of opportunity for training of companies like yourself that need to take large pieces of equipment that don't have an instruction manual and create training to help the new employees learn how to do their job, and so they can be successful and move on. So one of the things I like to do when I start in any kind of a training program is give the participants some quotes to think about. And these are some of the ones that the next 4 or 5 slides are quotes that I've used in the past. You're certainly welcome to change them and add some of your own. If you Google on learning quotes, there's just a zillion out there. And so pick some that talk to you. These are the ones that kind of speak to me a little bit. If you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you're determined to learn, no one can stop you. I think that is a pretty powerful one, because we see time and time again employees with a lot of things going against them, and they dig in and they're just bound, determined to learn a new skill, a new trade, or some movement, some movement in the organization, and they end up doing quite well. Here's another one. Success is a journey, not a destination. Just keep learning and keep growing. So many times we have employees that want to, even us will sit and stop and say, have I gotten there yet? Am I successful? And success is all about the journey, not about the stopping point or the destination. The more I live, the more I learn. The more I learn, the more I realize, the less I know. And the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the end. So you can have participants just read these out loud. Just call on different ones. Have them read out loud and says, what does that mean to you? And then ask them at the end which of the quotes were their favorites. And you can generate a little bit of a discussion about why that is, and help them realize that they're all kind of in the same boat in their learning journey. So the supervisory program, in this particular module, so this is module 1, which is really an introductory module. I'm going to move my head here. Is to first go through some classroom guidelines. I like to set expectations and rules up front, so we don't. I don't want training to fall into some big gripe session about the company or the manager or the plant manager or anything. I just want to keep it focused on the training and keep positive about the future. We'll do some introductions, get some expectations from each of the participants, what they hope to get out of it. And then I'll go through the course content, and then we'll talk at the very end about a program evaluation. So we're going to evaluate each of the modules with a brief evaluation, and then at the end of the program we'll do a complete evaluation of the whole course and get some feedback on whether or not it helped them move forward. So here's some classroom guidelines. I don't know why that moved. There we go. Let me get out of there. And I like to, you may have others you want to add to it, which is fine. I just come up with 3 simple ones to keep it simple and not make it sound like you can't do this, you can't do that. So I like to keep them positive. So listen intently to speakers or other participants. I think we have an opportunity to impart some interesting skills and knowledge on the participants, and it's helpful if they are completely detached from their job for at least whatever the length of the program is, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. So they need to be present mentally and physically. Number 2, be interactive and ask questions during the presentation. Participation is not just doing things and getting up and doing tasks. It's also participating during the discussions. I try to keep this to very limited lecturing and mostly focus on discussions and little activities to get their brains engaged and involved. And 3, hold all your phone calls and messages until the breaks. We'll have plenty of time to respond later. Sometimes I've seen in training classes, we put baskets by the door, and everybody's got to put their cell phone in there. And then we'll promise that we'll take a break at probably every hour, and they have an opportunity to go back and check their messages or check their voicemails. But you'll find quickly that after about the second or third break, they go, I don't need the phone. Occasionally there's somebody who's on call for the floor, or there's some major crisis happening, and I understand that. You have to kind of work with it. But for the most part, I try to avoid the constant text messaging, and particularly when they text message back and forth between each other in the class. It's just there's no need for that. That's just uncalled for. So here's our course content. So this is Module 1, Introduction Overview. And then the second module is Communication Skills, to talk about both listening and presenting. How to communicate effectively. We'll talk about nonverbal language. We'll talk about following instructions, listening intently for how to do something. And then the next module we'll be doing leading and delegating. So we'll talk through a leadership model and practice doing some delegating of tasks to their employees. And then there's conflict resolution. We're going to talk about what causes conflict, how do we work around that, how do we resolve it. Sometimes you don't resolve it, you just kind of agree to disagree, but we don't want it to become poisonous within the organization or within the department. So we want to talk through the conflict resolution. Important skill for supervisors is critical thinking and problem solving. So we want to give them some tools to allow them to try to resolve some tricky problems on the floor, know how to get involvement from their task, from their crew, and some tools for them to work with their staff and their employees to try to problem solve some tricky situations. Then we'll talk about time and priority management. And while the supervisor isn't at a desk, they are constantly balancing priorities. What has to go first? What has to go second? And we probably don't think of them enough as having to have those skills of time management and how to determine the most important priority and sequencing of tasks. And so that's an important piece of the puzzle. Then we'll do some diversity and generational differences. We're at a point in time that never before in our work history have we ever had 5 generations working at the same time. Now, over the last couple of years, a lot of the great generation, those born prior to 1930, 1940 are probably no longer in the workplace, but there's a lot of legacy there that we have to deal with. And then we want to look at ways that we can better communicate, better understand their value systems. A lot of times we get the comments as just with these new employees just aren't motivated. Well, why is that? And what can we do about it? And then number 8, we'll go into training and instruction. We'll talk a little bit about how to design instruction, how to train an employee on a task. We've got a couple of games to play that'll help illustrate that point. And then we'll do a little bit on team building so that you can try to do some tactics and some strategies to help your team come closer together and work better together. A lot of times manufacturing teams get very isolated. They're just doing one job all by themselves. There's no need to connect with anybody, and that can lead to isolation and quite frankly sometimes to negative feelings. And then we'll do a wrap-up and course evaluation, kind of lessons learned, and take it from there. So before we begin, I like to do introductions with the participants and also get a chance to hear their expectations for the program. Now that we've gone through an outline and we've talked about the content, what do they expect to get out of it? So for introductions, I like to do a kind of a fun little activity where they simply state their name, their first name, and again, most of the time they know each other. Might be a new person there. But the trick is they have to give an adjective that describes themselves, a one-word adjective that describes themselves with the same letter as their first name. So in my case of being of Bob, I have one I like to use called Buoyant Bob, because I like to be able to feel, I feel like I can kind of bounce around and be productive in a variety of settings and always float to the top. So you go around the room and you say, "Hi, I'm Buoyant Bob." And then you go to to the next person. It could be Serious Sue. It could be any number of things. And then you go around the circle, and then you have to get everybody to repeat the names and the adjectives of everybody else. So you just do a round robin until they all get it. And it's kind of a fun way because they have an identifier now. And most of the time, the classes continue using those words and those descriptors even in the following classes. And then you can ask them what's their expectations for this program. Sometimes I'll use Post-it notes and put a flip chart up if you have it available, or a whiteboard in your training facility, and just put down expectations. And then they can write, and I like to have them write it on a piece of paper, like a Post-it note, so they can stick it up there. So that way they don't feel intimidated. They don't feel like if they have writer's block, it's okay. And just put down 1-2 word expectations for the course. Post them up there, and then you can glance at it and you can say, "Hey, to the class, hey, what does it look like we're expecting to do in this class?" And you'll start to see some themes come through, and you can make notes of things that they particularly want to work on. And then after that, we go, "How do you feel about being a supervisor?" I use that generally as an open-ended discussion for them, and ask them, "So what's it like to be a supervisor? Is this a good job? Is this a frustrating job? Is this the toughest job in the plant?" A lot of people say that. And also, where are you on your journey? Where are you on your career journey, on your life journey? And that's where some of the quotes that we started with can tie back into that as where are we on the journey? So it's a way of kind of getting into get their thought processes going and learn a little bit about the participants, and the group itself will start to take on its own identity as they work through these kinds of questions. And then I start to move into Revolution. Let me move my screen down here. And these are some quotes that I just got off the website. I'm going to check with Kristen, see if there's some newer ones that we can use. But nevertheless, this is from Sean Whiteley, the CEO, and he talks about the importance of the sustainability of the environment, the guiding principles, core strategy, the value of our company. And then Cherish Miller from VP of Sustainability puts down, we are constantly innovating and collaborating to advance sustainability in our business. So what I would typically do, instead of just standing there reading it, I would select somebody to volunteer, or select them and volunteer them to read one of the quotes and then get the group to talk about a little bit. Is this what we really, is this really what we are? How do we see this in our day-to-day activities? So you can do some interesting discussions around these two quotes. And it also ties in a little bit more into being like, how is it that what we're teaching today, how does it tie into Revolution, and what's our overall mission? And then we do our activity with a t-shirt. So if you're tempted to actually get t-shirts, you could do that. But what the t-shirt activity is a sheet of paper that's in the participant's guide that has a picture of a t-shirt. And we'll give them markers, pencils, pens, crayons, whatever you want, and just have them draw symbols or pictures of what they think their role is as a supervisor. You might have individuals draw a picture of a whistle because they feel like they're a referee all the time. You have people that are problem solvers. That's how they view their role, is all I do is run around and solve problems. So have them figure out what their role is, and give them 10, 15 minutes to play around with this and have fun. There'll be a lot of joking about how bad some of the pictures are, but that's okay. There'll be some joking and trying to figure out what each person has drawn. And then at the end, you can have them each present it to the class as saying, this is how I view it. And then they're welcome to add more things on there. If your neighbor says something that seems to fit, go ahead and put it on there. So it's a fun, energizing activity for the group. Then keep the papers, and at the end of the program, after Module 10, we can hand them out. So they need to put their name on it. Hand it out, and then see how they've grown over the course of the program as they look at what their first thoughts were as a supervisor on their t-shirt, and now look at where they are today. So the next question is simply, so what is a supervisor? What's the responsibilities? What do they do? We're trying to help them come up with a job description, if you will. And so I would just use it and generate the discussion. There may not be much discussion because you may have gotten it already from the t-shirt exercise, but this is kind of a wrap-up. So if you've had a lot of discussion, you could use this particular slide as a way to frame it, pull it together. So what we're saying, it looks like there's 3 key areas of being a supervisor: safety, quality, and productivity, or whatever it might be. And you can whiteboard that, you can put it on a flip chart, or you could just have a discussion around it. And then we go to this slide, which is, why is the supervisor's role so important? Because so many times our supervisors feel that they're the low man on the totem pole, when in reality they're one of the most important positions at the plant. So I did a little research. I looked up some things on the role of supervisor, why it's important, and I thought this ties it together nicely. They're focused on quality, and maintaining quality, because they're the last people to see the product going out. You can have a quality department, but they only test and check certain samples. They're not watching it being made on a continuous basis. They're responsible for the safety of the employees and themselves, the responsibility for productivity, for communicating from the shop floor all the way up to the executive team. So they're the link in the communication process, and they're also problem solvers. So they need to be able to quickly take a situation and come up with some solutions to deliver to deliver the solutions and get back on track with production. So you can either just quickly present this if you're running low on time, or you can try to generate some discussion about which of those are most important. So much of it depends upon the group that you're working with, but you can get some discussion around this by saying, so what kind of quality issues are you faced with? What kind of safety issues are you faced with? And that's usually a good way to draw the participants out. And then finally, I like to use this employee engagement questionnaire, which has been around for a while. You can actually you can find it on the web if you Google Q12, Q as in the letter Q and 12, because research done by the Gallup poll found that if you, I've only got 4 questions up there, but the sheet that's in the workbook form has 12, that there's 12 questions that would indicate an employee's engagement in their organization. So you hand out the sheet and say, read through the questionnaire and write a yes or no. Count your yeses, your N's and your Y's. And then do your answers indicate your approximate level of engagement? And most people will say that they're engaged, but are they on a scale of 1 to 10? Are they a 10? Or are they a 2? Or are they a 3? Where are they on the engagement process? And then what does your answers indicate based upon how you answer these yeses and nos? And then the next question is, well, what about your employees? How would they answer the question? Would they feel the same way? And you can generate a lot of discussion around the importance of employee engagement, and you can generate a lot of discussion around the role of the supervisor is really also to help keep their employees engaged. So you can get a lot of discussion out of this particular activity, and it's a fun way to kind of wrap up the session. And then finally, we're going to say lessons learned today. So from this module, what are some of your key lessons that you learned? And then something that we'll be doing throughout the program is what we say is start doing, stop doing, and keep doing. So we think of it as an activity where we identify some things that, hey, I should start doing that because that would be a great way to keep my employees connected and keep them informed. They'll find things that they shouldn't be doing or stop doing because it's kind of a waste of time. And then they'll have some things that they should keep doing because it's fine, just keep doing it. And you can do this with Post-it notes also, where you put up on the board three colored pieces of paper with 3 different Post-it notes, a red one, a green one, and a yellow one. And so red one is for stop doing, green is for start doing, and yellow is for keep doing. And then they can post, and then they can write down things that they're going to do in each of those categories, post it on the board, and then you can get a pretty good idea of the whole group's sense of what they're going to do differently moving forward. It's very energizing. It's very helpful. And at the end, you can kind of keep it up there and have people start to think through, now, how am I going to do when I leave this classroom and go back to work? What will I do differently? And it's kind of that kind of a decision point that really helps people come to focus. So that's the end of the presentation. What and then there'll be a short evaluation at this point that you'll hand out and have them complete that to check on things like timing and check on things like clarity of instructions and involvement, engagement, questions like that. And what did they learn? Also, the question will be, what did you learn? And then we'll keep track of each of the modules. That way we can make some adjustments and changes on each one. So that's the end of the instructor's guide. Hope that helps you with it. And my suggestion is you watch this, as you watch this tape, go through the manual and make notes of how you might approach things differently. And when you do the first one, you'll find all sorts of things you did, all sorts of mistakes you made, and then you have a chance to go back. And when you do a second version of it, it gets even better. So with that, I leave you and look forward to seeing you in the next module.